If we continue to buy into this culture of wellness, which is ultimately sickness in disguise, we are going to scroll to death. We're going to kill ourselves, literally, by the demands that our workforce has for us. It literally is more than just checking an email at midnight. It's scrolling to death.
Welcome to Broadlines,
a weekly video podcast by the Female Quotient,
where real headlines meet real conversations.
And today we're talking about the cost of always being on and learning how to set digital boundaries.
Which sometimes I feel like I have absolutely none. I want you to be honest, 'cause I have a question for you. How many times did you check your phone, like before you even got out of bed this morning?
Well, it's not even like a check. It's not like a how many times did I check situation. It's did I open it immediately and scroll for 20 minutes before I left the bed?
So yes to checking, or just always constantly having it on you?
Basically.
I check the Nanit to see the baby, and I try to resist scrolling to Instagram, but it never really works. I always feel like this is my only time to see like what's on, but I know it's like an immediate like dopamine hit that I should probably not be doing. But we're not the only ones that are doing that. The average person picks up their phone like 150 times.
That's a lot of times. And like in a day?
In a day. And 55% of those people are still answering emails like after 11 p.m. at night. So it feels like an attachment that maybe we're not knowing that we're doing, but it's not a hustle really. It's like a 13-and-a-half-hour work week that we're disguising as like being flexible.
Well, today we're going to talk about what that's actually doing to our brains, how to turn it all off without feeling like we're falling behind.
Today, our guest is digital wellness activist Larz May. Thank you for being on Broadlines.
Thank you so much for having me here.
I want you guys to pull up a chair, put down your phone.
You can listen while it's down. You can put it down. Don't scroll and listen.
Or just go on a walk and talk.
Why do digital boundaries matter to you specifically? And what is the constant connectivity actually costing our mental health?
Digital boundaries are ultimately the first time you put your foot down to say that digital wellness matters. The average kid is spending 30 years of their life behind a screen. Most adults, especially flexible adults working from home, they're working 100 hours a week because their brains are never shutting off. Every time that device is in your pocket, you are thinking about the things that you haven't done. And in a culture where technology hacked our dopamine first with social media and email, and now with AI, which is hacking our oxytocin, it's getting to us on an even deeper and more human level. The reality is that we're not going to know the impacts that it has on our brains fully until the time that we are too old to actually reverse anything. But what we do know is that every day when you wake up, your brain is like a battery. And every time you multitask or you get a notification, it's like poking a hole in a water bottle, and you're just losing the energy and the stamina. And I think as a result, and as a culture, today what that means is that we're giving 10% 24 hours a day. But what that's going to mean tomorrow is that our addiction to this connecting, or to really feeling like we are enough by just responding to that 11 p.m. email, is going to lead to early signs of dementia and Alzheimer's, and it's impacting our memory. This is no longer just about mental health. This is really changing the structure of the human brain, which means that the future of humanity is at stake, and digital wellness is not a nice to have. It is a fundamental to hold on to the only thing that is human, which is our mind.
44% of women are, reporting burnout, basically. Do you think that this kind of digital crisis, I would kind of call it, is part of what is driving that burnout?
100%. I grew up watching all of the girl bosses do it all. And I was sold this narrative, like many of us, that you can be beautiful, you can go to the Soul Cycle class, you can raise all of the money, get an IPO, and do all of the things. But early on in my journey, I worked behind founders, and I saw that that narrative and that culture that everyone was striving for was really killing women. And so for me, at 25 years old, I actually left New York and moved to an art farm in Sonoma because I had lost feeling on the right-hand side of my body. I'd completely hit burnout. And it took at a young age, having a life or death physical and mental health experience, to realize if we continue to buy into this culture of wellness, which is ultimately sickness in disguise, we are going to scroll to death. we're going to kill ourselves, literally, by the demands that our workforce has for us. And I don't think we're talking about it enough, but it literally is more than just checking an email at midnight. It's scrolling to death.
What is happening to our brains when we're overstimulated by our phones?
Well, what is happening versus what do we do? When we feel overstimulated, and you talk to most entrepreneurs or just women our age, we go to our phone and we pull it out and we start doing the thing where we go on Instagram, we go on TikTok, and we try to numb out. And we think that that is soothing our emotions. But what it's actually doing is preventing us from really emotionally regulating. So by being connected all of the time, we're never actually able to sit with our emotions and self-soothe. We have gone to scrolling to do that. And as a result, bliss is no longer that baseline for humans. Our baseline is heightened dopamine hits. And so whenever we're down, it's like, oh, I'm depressed. It's like, are you depressed or are you just taking a beat to really feel what you've been escaping for 24 hours a day?
Yeah, it's true.
I do find too, like the more, I don't know, like when you talk about memory and how it affects the brain and all those things, I really feel that, because sometimes I'm like, why can't I remember these things? And like, we were late to the phones, but not like we've had them, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, in comparison to maybe someone a lot older, but it just is like, now I find myself, as you say, like sitting in it. And if I have a problem, I go to my phone and be like, what are people talking about my problem? Who's doing what? Who's doing this? And I'm like, I'm barely making my own decisions because I'm too busy comparing other people's results to like what I'm going through. And I don't realize I'm doing it until I'm sitting here talking to you about it.
Well, the brain is a muscle, and it's a very powerful muscle. And every time that you go to AI to do the thing that your brain should have done, which is to critically think, or to creatively activate, or to come up with an idea, that ultimately is atrophy, in the same way that if you don't move your legs for 2 weeks, you lose your muscle. Well, the brain is one too, but I think we forget that. And why this is so critical right now is that humans, all of us, when we feel tired and we feel overstimulated, we go to AI for help. And what we're doing is turning AI into the engine as opposed to the GPS. But our brain should always be the engine. The brain should always be the thing that we're activating. AI should just be helping us move that idea down the line. And for us as adults, it's bad. But really from 0 to 28, if kids' brains never actually learn how to activate, we are going to lose a species that knows how to critically think.
That's incredibly scary.
One of the things you said earlier too is that caught my attention is the self-soothing that we're going on, say to scroll on social media to kind of like turn our brains off in a way. And it's funny because I find myself telling people that like my algorithm is like perfectly curated, and it's just, like when I get on there, I don't feel, overwhelmed, because it's not like me comparing myself to other people or looking at like, it's like puppies and fun, and like to me anyways. And as we talk and as you say, like that's not actually allowing you to regulate your emotions. That's kind of like, I find that so interesting, because I think a lot of us think that if we are using social media in a way that doesn't seem outwardly toxic, like we're not, like engaging in maybe like political arguments or whatever, then it's fine that we're on there as much as we are. But from what you're saying, like that's not really how it works.
It's not. And digital wellness, a very core component of that, is that not all screen time is created equal. There is active tech consumption, and then there's passive tech consumption. Active tech consumption, and I'll use AI because that is the moment right now, is like last night, I said, AI, here are 10 ways I think I could describe this thing. Imagine that you are the CMO and you want to give me feedback. Like, what do you think is horrible about these things? And that was an active moment where I was going back and forth with AI to give me critical feedback, but I was the one with the pen to paper coming up with the core idea. That's very active. Passive consumption is when you're burnt out at the end of the day, or you're in a fight with your boyfriend or your husband and you're in bed and you become a screen zombie. And kids do it, but really they just watch adults do it and copy us. And there is one thing that I do though, and I call it my regulation station on Spotify, where when I want to go to my phone and I want to self-soothe by scrolling, which really just becomes mistakes and adding a cart on Amazon and like doing all these things. It's literally like going to the best store in the world when you haven't slept, you're super burnout, and you're just like, here's the credit card. Like, I'm just too tired to deal with this. But my regulation station actually has binaural beats. It has calming meditation music. It has Oprah Winfrey inspirational motivation. And that's what I listened to even this morning, where I woke up at 4:30. I knew I had to get ready for this and also get a lot of work done. And I, felt initially a little overwhelmed. Option one was go on Instagram and scroll and see everyone doing things that is making me feel worse about myself, or turn on the regulation station, put down the phone, and just really feel. Like, what am I feeling? Why? And like, how often do we even give ourselves permission to name the thing that we are feeling? We don't, because social media wants to name that for us.
I think a lot of people also feel like they need to be on their phones, not necessarily on social media. For some people, yes, social media, but need to be on their phones because they need to be flexible, whether it is for work or to make sure, that their children can reach them, or for whatever reason, they must have the phone right there all the time, middle of the night. How do you incorporate flexibility into your life and into your world with these hardline boundaries?
As I said earlier, scrolling is not soothing. Your inbox is also not soothing. And many high performers, and this is a conversation I've been having with a lot of women, we get to be 30 years old, and then we look at all of these horrible boundaries that we set. And what's very hard is that we have to look ourselves in the mirror and say, the things that made me excellent are also the things that are going to break me. And for me, to be completely honest with you, setting boundaries, quote unquote, is a very loose term. There's a difference between a boundary and a hard line. A hard line for me is saying, hey guys, guess what? Every morning at this time, I'm getting out of my mind and into my body and going to boxing or going to yoga, and you're not going to reach me. I also build in creativity in afternoons or on Fridays when I'm feeling very burnout. I say, you know what? I'm going to go do a knitting lesson. I'm going to go to a calligraphy class. I'm going to become a beginner at something creative because it activates my mind and it takes me completely out of this world. Or are you someone that has to draw a hard line and put yourself into a situation where accessing that world is no longer possible? And I just think, we're not honest. Like, boundary is just like a word where I'm like, boundaries are kind of BS, to be honest with you.
And a hard line actually makes sense. And also not being accessible because you put yourself in that situation. Some of us need that. I need to go to the gym and not take my phone with me, or else I'll be running and checking my phone.
And that's what I was going to say. I've found a lot of that lately. Like, I'll be in a class and like a Pilates class and people bring their phones. I mean, I always leave mine in the locker because I'm like,
this is my time to not be accessible. Yeah.
But then I noticed the other day, like, I get the notifications on my watch. And I mean, I have the watch on because obviously I'm trying to track my fitness. But then I find myself just as bad as like the girls in the back with the phones where they're literally like checking in the middle of it. I'm like still looking at the watch. So now I'm like, here's the ring. I can't look at it. And this is tracking my fitness.
In LA and New York, people are lurking in their emails in the downward dog. I see it. And that's why I had to pull myself out and, move to Sonoma, where people are like, what is email? I think boundaries are of the past. Boundaries are like windows. I don't want a window. I want a door, and I want a hard line. And a watch is a window. A hard line is my phone is in the locker, I'm in yoga, and there is nothing more important than my peace.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. Can you tell us how you came to create Half the Story, and in a little bit like how really teens, and you're teaching teens more things than like maybe adults probably should know that aren't picking up on it, because teens seem to be more receptive to these things and we're kind of set in our ways.
Teens are the greatest teachers that we have, and they're mirrors, and they're frustrating because they bring up so much about ourselves that is really frustrating. And I guess I'll just start with that. But Half the Story, as a name, came from the idea that social media is only half the story. I almost didn't make it to adulthood because I almost lost my life due to the thing that we've been talking about for this whole episode, which is a phone. When I was in college, I was of that first generation that was not only entering social media, but I was a young entrepreneur. I had a fashion blog. I had moved to LA after my freshman year at college, and I bought into a reality that didn't exist. I was scrolling more than I was sleeping, socializing, studying, and I was a girl that was a high performer that would go to school with a fever in high school, and I couldn't even get out of bed because the girl on the screen that was skinnier than me made me believe that I wasn't enough, and I too needed to eat less or run more and do all of these things that quite literally took over my ability to function as a human being. And I went to a psychiatrist. I had an RA that really saved my life. And I found it incredibly challenging that I was spending so much time getting support in this program. But they asked me about drugs, sex, and alcohol, but never the drug in my pocket, where I was spending more time than anywhere else. And one day I just walked out of my campus. And at that time, I wanted to work in fashion, guys. Like I was, in LA working for Hood by Air, Sincerely Jules, like the early fashion area at Rogers and Cohen. And I was like, okay, first of all, I've been behind the scenes. I know that whatever story social media is selling me as a young girl isn't real because I'm there packing boxes and seeing what it's like after the photos are taken or what's actually being edited. But that actually almost killed me. And half the story was my way of saying, hey, I actually just want to get to the root of this. And I want to understand, how do young people relate to technology? And so I started it with $250 and a sticker, literally. And I bootstrapped it. I was the first employee at 2 high-growth consumer companies and spent nights and weekends speaking on stages, using that money to fund the project. And it evolved into really becoming one of the largest digital wellness nonprofits and really the first that put teens at the center, empowered their relationship for the future so that they could thrive as humans.
You just announced a partnership with Girls Inc., and that's funded by some of our favorites, Oprah, Melinda French Gates, Meghan Markle. Can you tell us a little bit more about that partnership and what it will do and what it will mean for the impact for teens and for the company and for digital wellness?
Yeah, well, half the story's North Star vision in this next era with AI and technology is to actually build 10 million little Larzes that actually go out into the world and fight against the systems and support their schools on a local level through joy, through hosting screen-free proms and advocating for policies, and also to educate every young person about tech. Because I'm going to be honest, we're teaching kids about PE, but our kids aren't even going to PE because they're on their phones.
Yeah.
So digital wellness is the first step to getting people to do anything else, like walk, sleep, all of the other things. And so I really saw this as an opportunity to build the program for my younger self that I didn't have. And Girls Inc. has been around for 160 years. And the opportunity to say, I want to take our methodology, our research-backed program, to teach girls the skills that they will need to flourish from the inside out, that is a dream come true. And as soon as that happened, and I am one of those founders and people, anyone that you meet will know me. I read this secret when I was 10 years old, guys, okay?
I remember that
put
book.
a check on my ceiling. I wrote notes to Oprah as a little kid. Well, this partnership started to unfold. I had, around the same time period, just been asked to go and be on the Oprah show. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to get Pivotal Ventures, Melinda French Gates, and the Oprah Winfrey Charitable Fund to do this, and Meghan. Like, this is what I'm going to make happen. And it happened because these women were so invested in supporting this issue. Oprah focusing on education and girls. That has always been one of her number one focuses. And I was like, hey, this is an opportunity to educate girls with the thing that they need more than ever. And at half the story, what we also know, and the girls that we support are coming from circumstances that we really hope to help them outperform. And the families that they come from don't have any of this training. And as a result of it, they're dealing even more so with the downsides of tech, which is something that we don't talk about in our world. Like, there's a huge equity part of this where, the girls coming from tough areas or families, single moms, all of these things, like, those kids are dealing with so much more than the media even talks about. And it was a dream come true. And I think, behind every woman entrepreneur was just a little girl with a dream. And more than anything, I wanted to show these girls that I had a dream and I struggled, and these women have come behind me. And my hope is that I can be your hero too. And more than anything, we can all be our own superheroes. And behind every screen is your superpower. So let's unlock it and change the world.
Speaking of screens, I covering news in Boston and on the East Coast, a lot of debate about phone bans in schools.
Yeah.
Should they put them in the little plastic Ziplocs? And like they're doing, everybody was kind of at the time, which was just a couple of years ago, experimenting with this idea.
Yeah.
You've made a lot of moves in New York with Governor Kathy Hochul and Secretary Clinton about doing this. Can you explain where they are now and the importance of these phone bans?
Yes. Well, what I will tell you is that phone bans are really a brand. They are a starting line where a country or a state says, we care about digital wellness in young people. They are not a destination. They are not the only solution. And I won't pretend to say that they are. When the phone ban started happening, I saw something really interesting from being on the ground. And it was bans, all this fear language. This works for adults and it gets them to do things. I love that. Great. But teens respond to joy.
Yeah.
They respond to what I've been talking a lot about. Our whole culture thrives and profits off of this doom loop. But what kids really thrive on is the joy loop. They don't care about bans. They care about, what do we get as a result of that? Is it phone-free prom? Is it craft carts so that we can recreate human connection? And so as this all was happening, and by the way, we had some really other exciting updates because it's happening outside of New York. So you'll hear about that soon. But I had the opportunity to speak to Secretary Clinton and basically ask, okay, I want to make New York successful. This is where half the story was born. We have young people across the state. It's like one of the biggest education systems in the world, but we have a really big problem. And the problem is teachers are burnout, overwhelmed. And there is no young person at any table that is actually telling the truth about what a phone ban is going to look like in a school where there are metal detectors. What a phone ban is going to look like in a school where a teacher is afraid that a kid is going to punch them in the face.
Yeah.
Or what is a phone ban going to look like in a school where one of our students, or two of them, Jack and Addison, and their community in New York, where there are more cows than people, and they're also getting arts cuts on top of this. And so what we decided was to build a scalable framework where we could train young leaders across districts in the state. We could fund them to create phone-free fun ideas and teach them how to actually conduct research on the ground floor so that we could come back to the governor and say, hey, this is what worked, this is what didn't. And when we invest in young people creating joyful experiences for real human connection, this leads to real well-being of a community and society. And this is what that looks like. And that model has worked incredibly well in New York. We funded projects all across the state. And now our aim is to let's build that out across states and hopefully other countries all around the world. And look, it started with phone bans. Now it's going to be AI. It's going to be all these different things. But we cannot save the world through fear. And guess what? School is also not catching up to what young people actually need to learn. So we say, we'll take the leaders in, we'll train them, we'll fund them, and we'll help them make their screen-free dreams come true. Because the future is the action, not the apathy. And that is the greatest thing that we should be fearing right now when it comes to young people.
I know like a couple years ago I saw kind of like, and I don't know if it was just like a one-off article or if this was really like a movement, but I think it was particularly among Gen Z, them deciding that we just don't want the phones anymore. And some of them going back to like, I kind of laughed because they went back to like the phones without the internet, like,
The
you know,
T9
Nokia
texting?
3310s with like Snake and all of that. Do you find that there's more of that attention kind of driven by the actual like teens themselves or Gen Z to kind of step away from phones? Like, are they waking up and realizing? Because I know you've also shifted to awareness for parents. We're going to talk about that in a second. But do you find that the actual generations and the kids are like getting wise to the fact that like our brains are melting?
That's so smart.
I mean, we've got a lot to learn from kids. And we are experiencing right now really a digital wellness revolution. We've had, and I've studied deeply, Gloria Steinem was actually one of my greatest inspirations when I first started. And for Half the Story's 10th anniversary, instead of hosting a fundraiser for us, we actually had an event at her home that was really about how do we preserve her legacy. And I learned a couple of really important things from her. And I think one of them is that there's always going to be a mean between the extremes, but we need the extreme to meet somewhere in the middle. And those young people that are saying, guess what? Big men and big tech, you guys are making money off of my time, and I'm not going to stand for it, because my time and my joy and my play is the most critical thing to protect. And yeah, we see rebels all over the world that are doing that. We see kids that say, I don't even want a phone. I heard from one girl, she was like, I cried when my mom gave me an iPhone for my birthday because I was so overwhelmed. And I think kids nowadays, they want to know that there is a future where they are going to be able to flourish. And for a lot of kids, phones are getting in the way of that. So they're turning it down. There's movements all over, and I'm for it. I mean, our teens also at Half the Story, they're coming together to have screen-free story circles, which is really how this all began, because our kids are more desperate for human connection than anything, but we're still in a society that's looking at the metrics of grades as the only indicator of if our kids are okay. And the reality is our kids are not okay.
And I know you shifted your focus to parents,
Yes.
which is obviously half of the story, because it's like, like the kids are not out there by themselves.
Yeah.
You founded a new company called Gingko. Why did you decide to focus on parents, and why did you decide to start this second and separate company?
I spent a decade on playgrounds, going to rural and urban communities, while also going to the Capitol and fighting against big tech. And I noticed a couple of things. One is that these companies were being built in rooms away from families. So in other words, while these men were paying to play, I was playing on the playground with kids and seeing how these companies were impacting their dynamics and their well-being. And I just came to this core insight after being on the ground and seeing. And by the way, my goal is to build a whole ecosystem. I want to own digital wellness. I want to have a nonprofit, a for-profit, and hopefully a media company in the future. But the real insight that I gained was that parents don't fear screens. They fear a kid that is not going to be able to function in the real world, that is not resilient, that can't hold a job, whose brain is going to be destroyed. I cannot tell you how many times I hear from parents, is my kid who is taking a bath with their iPad going to be that 18-year-old that never leaves their room video gaming? Because that's what I see and I'm afraid of. And so then I realized, okay, what do we do about that? I realized that we were getting it all wrong, actually. And working with a lot of families, and the example of the kid in the bath was that the parents were so afraid of screens, yet they were around the screens in front of their kids. All they were afraid of is like the anxiety, is my kid going to survive? What I was able to unlock is that it's not about the screens, it's what is behind that screen. And what I was able to figure out is that this kid actually wanted to be a chef, and he was watching a lot of cooking videos. And so I kind of worked with this family and said, hey, like, what if we get your kid cooking? And what if the screen, like we talked about boundaries before, like screens are actually windows into our kids' worlds if we let them be, and we use that data as information. And so really what Gingko is a springboard from screens to the real world, where we take the insights and the interests that your kids have, and we are that whisper to parents that says, hey, your kid has been really interested in watching crochet videos. Like, maybe you should actually go out and get them crochet this weekend and teach them how to do it. Or, hey, your kid over the last week wanted to actively consume instead of passively consume 80% of the time. Like, this is actually a really good sign, and like, you should check in with them and try to do X. We've got to stop focusing on the screen. We've got to figure out what's behind that screen. How do we unlock that superpower into the real world? And what insights do we have to actually do that? And so my vision is to actually raise a generation of young people that actually develop skills in the real world, which sounds crazy. But when you sit with middle schoolers, before they become that addicted high schooler, they're like, oh, I'm actually want to learn how to crochet, or I want to build a lemonade stand, or I want to learn how to be a creative artist. But parents aren't nurturing that. So I'm really excited to build this tool and, scale it for parents around the world so that screens no longer become the door or the excuse for our kid not performing, but that Gingko can be that window for you to say, oh, my kid wants this, and maybe I just didn't know that.
And I'm not a parent, but from what I see from my friends that are parents, it is hard. Like it's hard to know what their interests are. And I feel like even when I talk to my friends and I'm like, oh, what's your kid into so that I can get a Christmas present? It's kind of like, well, she's really into her iPad. And I'm like, well, what's on the iPad? I've never thought to ask that question. Well, what on the iPad is she even looking at to maybe say, okay, well, we can connect those two. So that's a very interesting concept. As we continue to talk about digital wellness, especially for our parents and just, who are setting the example and just even non-parents, what does it actually look like in your day-to-day life to be digitally well? Like, what are the things that we should be doing? Because I think it's one thing to say, put the phone down, but it doesn't always, it's not a, you know what I mean? It's like, kind of like, okay, sure. And I'm going to put it down for 35 seconds. And then, so what does it look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think put the phone down is like the greatest cop out of all time. And I tell parents this all the time. I'm like, telling your kid to put their device down or ripping it out of their hand is like telling a woman to calm down. Okay. You don't get a good response. And so there are a couple of things that I live or die by. One is swap screens with fun. So whether it's yourself or your child, you have to have something else that you can do. So what that looks like for me is I have an analog desk. On my desk, I have friendship bracelet stuff. I have crayons. I have all of these things so that when I'm on calls, I can just doodle or draw and I don't feel that drive to actually multitask. And I can replace the screen with something that I can physically do. And for kids, that works very well too. It's say, all right, I'm going to take your screen, but here's a bubble wand. So that's number one. Number two, start and end your days screen free. Like that is sacred. And I know it's actually quite hard for moms with Nanit. Like that's a real thing. Like parents want to see their kids sleeping, but so if you can't start your day screen free, like start it social media free and make sure that night before, even if you were doom scrolling before bed, like you actually log out of social media so that you can give yourself the opportunity, sure, to look at the Nanit to make sure your kid is breathing, but you're not going to easily be able to get on Instagram or TikTok and do that thing. And then the third thing that I would say, and I think that a lot of us just struggle so much with this, which is like honestly super embarrassing, but like do not bring your screen to the toilet or to the bath. Like it's, no one talks about this, but like so many people are like texting while they're going to the bathroom, and it's like, this is the 2 minutes you have to yourself in the day. Like sit with yourself literally and figuratively and like see how you feel. And those small, once you start doing that, you realize like, wow, I brush my teeth and I scroll. Wow, I make my kids food and I scroll. Like just try one time a week where you're just mindful of that. And I think the last thing I'll say, and this is very hard for people, is one day a week, go AI free. What that also means is give your brain a workout once a week. And you're going to realize, wow, I'm like so dependent on this thing to write for me, tell me where to go, organize my grocery list. And we just have to make sure that in the same way you wouldn't go to a Pilates class and just stay on like the lightest bar, you don't want to be doing that with your brain. There's actually two other things that I would say, rules of them. One is that you should never have as many screens as people in a room. So take the amount of people in the room and subtract a screen, because that makes sure that you're both watching the TV or you're having that conversation. And the second is, if you're really struggling, even for adults, give your partner your social media password and have them change it. And literally lock yourself out. So the only way that you can get in is if that trusted guide, whether it's your husband or your kid, whoever it is, unlocks it for you. Because adults need hard lines too.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I mean, no one will make you more aware that you're on your phone than a toddler.
No, I mean, that's
we were really, really trying, and we do try as much to not have the screens. And it's like she'll be like, no, because she like doesn't want the attention to be like away from her. And then she also, like, when I'm texting, she either says Dada or Lala, which is her grandma, because most of the time those are the two people I'm like texting her dad or her grandma. And so she knows it as that. But like as soon as she sees a video on my phone, she wants it. And I'm like, I just don't want that, especially those short form videos that are like instant, because I know what they do to me. And so it's like, I try to tuck it under the couch. I try to do all these things, but you do realize like I'm reaching for it. And then she's looking at me and I'm like, oh, it's like having police.
It's also very hard as a parent. And I just want to name, like, it is actually not always realistic that you're going to do all these things.
Yeah,
and so
for sure.
There's actually like a really great term, and it's called gentle content. And truly, if your daughter wants to watch TV or films, do not give her YouTube. Like the way that these things are being designed today, if you look at the way that Arthur or other shows from the 90s were designed and you put them next to Coco Melon, as an adult, you will just see viscerally how differently they're designed. So if you're a parent and you're like, I am a single parent or I'm overworked, I have this meeting, everything's burning, and then I have 2 toddlers, the best thing you can do is actually give them a show from the 90s.
Yeah.
Watch
So good.
cartoons from the 90s.
Yeah.
We do not need Coco Melon. We do not need to be having shorts. Give them long-form content from the 90s. You'll see it's duller colors, and have a conversation with them about it when they get older and be like, hey, look, like this is what I watched. And I actually just want to show you like what people are watching today and like, what do you notice the differences here? Like, how does it feel in your brain? How does it feel in your heart? How does it feel in your body? Like, just to start getting them aware of, hey, and that's a big part of Gingko's work too, is like, we know that kids that are working with us as we're building this product are more aware and conscious of how to regulate themselves. And that is something that adults never learn. So if adults didn't learn it, we got to build a system for the whole family so that young people know how to regulate their systems, because we can't just let history repeat itself.
We have a little tight projector that just projects storybooks on the wall.
That's great.
She thinks it's a movie. It's hilarious. She's like, movie. And I'm like, oh, we could watch a movie. And it's like she holds it and it like projects like Bernstein Bears on the wall. And it's a very slow slide and it reads. And sometimes I'm like, I could get lost in this too, because it's like the same. I mean, it's just stills, right? And it's just reading her the story. But she thinks that's a movie. And I'm like, thank God, because I'm not trying to, I don't want to turn on the TV for her, because I don't want to, like, it's a slippery slope. You do it, like we've done it a couple times, but then it's like, man, I wish I could just turn the TV on for you right now. And then you're starting to get into this pattern that's like, it's really hard. And like, I know sometimes it's fine. Like, I have friends that have a toddler and a baby, and they're like, sometimes I just got to throw it on. And it's like, that's the reality of life. You're never going to be perfect in your parenting, but you can give it a good shot. But it's hard. And especially when it's the norm, when you just go to a restaurant and every kid's on an iPad and you're like, wow, she's quiet. And like, and you're like, sometimes you need that. But
her brain is melting.
Yeah. I mean, that's like one of my cousin has a small baby, and they were like, they went to another family member, they're like, you let him use an iPad? And they were like, we felt so guilty when she explained what it did to their brain that like we've banished them from the house. And I was like, yeah, it's not what we grew up with, so it's real different to see kids, because what did we do? I was like, I used the menu with the crayons.
You'd be surprised, or I was surprised, that like the things that I've rediscovered lately that just bring me so much joy that are not screens, i.e. like reading a book. I know it sounds like revolutionary, but like just reading a book. When I was moving, I found all of these comic books. I used to love to read comic books, and I'm like, why have I replaced the reading of the comic books? And I found like volume 1, 2, and 3 of like a comic book that I like to read, and I was like, wait, I never finished this.
That's your joy loop.
Yeah. So I ordered all the rest of them, like the whole volume, and then Josh came over and he was just like, wait, you like comic books? So do I. And I'm like, oh, wait, look at us, we're gonna read comic books.
I mean, Dua Lipa did meet her husband reading a book.
Really?
Oh, yeah,
I just think we forgot about hobbies. Just like in general, like the hobby is now content.
You would be surprised how many things there are that are not screens that are still fun. I think we forget that sometimes.
Yeah. Let's talk about really quick about women and work, because there are women out there, or just people in general, who think that responding to that 11 p.m. email is making them competitive, is putting them ahead because they're available and they can do it. Is it the flex we really think it is, or is it just bad time management?
I love that you asked this question. So with AI, the expectation that I have from my employees is that you better be working as smart as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that you probably shouldn't be messaging me at 11 p.m. And there is a fine line between hustle and poor time management. As an entrepreneur and as a woman, we've been trained to believe that we're not enough and that we always have to be available. But I will tell you that the best thing that you can do is teach people how to treat you, and to also underpromise and overdeliver. And so there are a couple of things that I do. I'm like, when people on my team text me at 11 p.m., I respond, go to sleep, especially if you're on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I love my assistant so much. She works very, very hard. And sometimes I'm like, VK, go to sleep, because I'm in bed and I'm on the West Coast. Like, I am worried. Like, don't worry, I'm going to make it to my meeting tomorrow. Like, I think it's on a leader too to also say, hey, like, I don't want you to do that, because I want 100% of you at 8 a.m., not 10% of you from 8 a.m. to midnight.
Yeah.
And leaders need to do a better job saying, like, here's my hard line and you should have it too. And I think, the last thing I'll say is, there's this great setting on your iPhone where it was actually created for do not disturb in driving, where it responds and says, like, driving, do not disturb. I edit that, and sometimes I throw it up and it'll be like, hey, I'm off my phone today. I'm going horseback riding, or I actually don't do that. It's just a dream. So I don't know why I said that, but I'm making crafts. I'm like getting my life together because I have zero time to do my laundry when I travel every week and work a lot. Like, you will not hear from me, but I'm okay, because we all have the grandma or the aunt or the mom that's like, are you dead? Like,
Yeah.
because they just now think like, oh, it's not just in the workplace.
No,
okay? Like,
it is. That's
the,
true.
like, I'm worried about the elders. They're like, where are you? You didn't respond to me in 1 second. I'm like, I was doing my laundry and like, brushing my hair, you know?
Mhm.
And so I think that sometimes it just takes down the anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm not going to be available to you today. So don't get mad at me for not responding. Like, the expectation that I have of you is that you're going to like give me space. And the expectation that you should have of me is to know that I'm okay and I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And so there's that. But I think, look, like, as women, we've got to be in each other's corner, and we need to change that in this generation in the workplace. And like, I'm all for it. I'm like, you know what, girl, put down your phone and go on a date tonight. Or if you want to message me, schedule it to go out at 5 a.m. because you know I'm going to see it. So I think it's just like, we now have the capability to be mindful about when we pop into people's worlds. And I'll be very honest, like, whenever I message people late or off hours, I'm usually doing it for 2 reasons. One, I'm super excited and I have something to say. And I'm like, oh my God. Or 2, I'm exactly what we talked about earlier, which is burnout and tired, and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, and therefore my intention and the impact are completely just not connected. And it can actually be very disrespectful to people to be like, oh, I'm messaging you at 10 p.m. You think that interrupting my child bedtime or me being in bed with my partner is something that you're allowed to do. And I don't know, I just think it says a lot about like how you reach people and when. And as a leader, if you dysregulate your team's nervous systems, the results are going to be dysregulated too.
Yeah. That's one good thing about growing up in the Caribbean, is that like it was the most disrespectful thing to call somebody's house, message people like after like 8 p.m. So to this day, I still have like trauma around like sending a message or contacting someone like past a certain hour, like, you know, like a mental thing. It's just like I physically cannot do that. And that's the one like leftover side effect, is that you're probably not gonna have a.
But I think that's a good one.
Yeah,
I think it's what I was raised too. Like, you didn't call anybody's house after a certain time.
I mean, look, it is hard, and I think, you know, as a founder, look, like, I'm not perfect at this, and like, even sometimes, but I appreciate people that will hold their line, because you're like, oh great, I just did something bad. But I think it's just really hard because as a founder, you're like, okay, I don't have a plan B. This is my baby. And you treat it like your baby, and you can't expect that everyone is going to treat your baby. It's like, you wouldn't treat their real baby the way that you're treating your real baby, you know? And I think it's just like, you have to be really honest with yourself, and you have to set realistic expectations. And I think as a founder, that's very hard, because you're like, this is my literal life. Like, when people are like, oh, you know, like, you know, what do you do in all your free time? I'm like, honestly, like, I'm doing my life's work, and I'm crafting or connecting and spending time with people. But I grew up in the Midwest, and it was very much so like, my parents never checked emails at home. They didn't have that. They had a pager. It was very much so like, work is a part of your life, but like, you're not doing your life's work. And I think that's just something that I struggle with for sure. And as I think about in the future, going back to the earlier part of this conversation, is like, the things that make you excellent are also the things that can be really destructive, not only in your own life, but in your family life. And I just think it's very powerful when women, especially people on Female Quotient, are just really honest about the toll that it takes to be the best.
Yeah.
And I just don't think we're honest about it. Like, I'm like, the sacrifices that I have made and continue to make are just ridiculously unbelievable. And my husband does too. And like, that is why I'm able to do what I do. But, you know, there's a cost for everything.
Yeah. What's the most realistic way to avoid digital fatigue if you, and I hate to use the word need, but if you need your phone, like if your job is dependent on you, you know, being online the majority of the time, what's the best way to kind of like, you know, regulate yourself if you do need it?
Yeah. So I think first is use sound, and, you know, try to get out of the room where the device is, and like, just do something simple, like literally clean your room. I would also say use AI so that you can actually do the things you need to do, but also get work done. So one of my favorite hacks is I literally turn on granola.
Wait, what's granola?
Granola, okay. All right. Granola is a note-taking app.
Okay.
And basically you put it on in the background and you can speak to it. There's also Whisper Flow too.
Okay.
It kind of depends. Like people like using Granola for meetings and it's great because you can chat with it and it's very succinct. Whisper Flow is basically if you want to have a walk and talk. I do walk and talks with myself or clean and talks where I'll use AI and literally I just like will draft 50 emails. So let's say this week I had 10 calls and I was, a day late in sending follow-ups. I will look at my calendar, I'll get in my room, I'll clean my room, and I'll literally speak to the AI and write, hey, dear so-and-so, thank you so much for your time, blah, 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 blah. And by the end of it, I've cleaned my room, I have 20 emails written, and it's not AI writing it, it's AI dictating what I'm saying, so I copy-paste it. And I think there's a fine line between using AI to replace humanity and using AI to be efficient.
Yeah.
And I find dictation is like a very human way to use it where you're using your words and getting other things done. And also it's screen free. I love it. Content creation is another way I do it. I'll go on a walk and talk with myself and just be like, okay, here's some ideas of things that parents asked me about this week. I'm going to come up with 10 videos. Here are my ideas. And then you go back and you're like, okay, these are my ideas. Which ones are actually good? Which ones aren't? And I think that's this moment that we're in right now is we actually have the opportunity to reclaim our brain space if we use AI in the right way.
Yeah. If there's someone has today listened to this podcast, but also was on social media, opening her phone 10 times and really does want to stop the repeated behavior, what is one thing that you will tell her after she puts her phone down this last time that she should do?
Log out of all of the platforms that you are mindlessly scrolling on. You have to create speed bumps in the digital world because tech was not built with them.
And I'm lazy, so if I have to log back in,
I'll never see it again.
I mean, I literally,
I'm
the person that literally forgets my email password every 3 days. And I'm like, hey, what's my email password again? Can you reset it? So I'm like really screwed if I do. The team's like, hey, we actually have to run something through your platform. And I'm like, oh, sorry, can't help you.
Yeah.
We're going to have to contact Instagram. Don't know my password.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That would be like,
down.
but we have we have a TV upstairs and one downstairs and we'll be watching and then we're like, let's go watch it upstairs. But like for some reason, like the Disney Plus or whatever it is, isn't connected upstairs. We always forget. I press it and I go, oh, it's not. And we both go, meh. Because I'm like, I'm not trying to reset a password and put it into, like, it's just too much.
Use your lazy
I
to
just
protect
give up.
yourself.
Yeah.
That's a good way
That's
to
a
do it.
good way to do it.
If Alexa was going to reset my password for me, I'm all for it. But like the remote, the this, the that.
Yeah, no.
It's just a sign to embrace the real world.
Yeah.
I think so too.
And that I wasn't interested in the first place. I was just doing it.
Yeah.
Like
And
sometimes
then-
you
no,
realize,
right?
like, I wasn't.
You're like, why was I doing this again?
Because it was easy.
Yeah.
And like, if it's hard to get in, I'm like, there's nothing really in there that I need at this current moment anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we like to play a game called Fuck Yes or Fuck No.
Perfect. Because I always say fuck yes life. So this is very much my mentality. So let's go.
You've checked your phone within 30 minutes of waking up this morning.
Fuck no.
You responded to just one work message after 9 p.m. in the last week.
Fuck yes.
Okay. You've eaten a meal while checking your phone or a work app.
Fuck yes.
You've woken up in the middle of the night and checked your phone.
Fuck no.
Leaving your phone at home for one full workday.
This is a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
In a dream world, fuck yes.
Yeah.
I love to just be right here and find out everything I missed tonight. And that's kind of how I like to live my life. I'm like, I'm having in real life day and I will say, sorry, I will not respond to you. And I have no idea what's going to happen until tomorrow.
In real life day.
It stresses people out. I'm like, if I'm here, it's my in real life day. Like, nope,
Yeah.
I'm not answering any emails. I'm not responding to texts
I love
unless
that.
I'm going to be with you. So like, just own it. Don't be here and here or like tell people in advance.
Okay, you've drafted a LinkedIn post, convinced yourself it's too braggy, and then you deleted it, and then you reposted a version of it 20 minutes later.
Fuck no. Own your truth.
Your idea of taking a break is switching from your work screen to your Instagram.
Fuck no.
You've said, I just need to send one more email, and then maybe you sent 4.
Fuck yes. Yeah.
You block focus time on your calendar and actually protect it from any last-minute meeting requests.
Fuck yes. I actually said no to something this week. And it was during my yoga. And I said, nope, I'm not going to this because I'm going to yoga. The old me would have done it.
I can't say how many times I've like canceled my workout because someone wanted to do something at that appointed time, and I'm like, oh, it's in the 24-hour cancel window. Like I could cancel.
No, I'm like, you
I'm
think that
annoyed.
your program is more important than my inner peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharing your relationship online is a form of emotional outsourcing.
I think fuck yes. Like I'm not very public about that because it's like when I'm working so much, I just want to be with my person. I don't want to show the world this is all the things I'm doing with my person.
Yeah. The algorithm has more influence over your self-image than your therapist does.
Fuck no. My therapist is over 70 years old and she doesn't let me get away with anything.
The best kind.
You can be truly authentic online.
Fuck yes. Too authentic.
Interesting. I was not saying interesting. I think we wonder if people can be like, you know, if you
Their
can be
true selves.
right, or if everything is just performative these days.
Oh no. I mean, look, I will say I really own my inner child. And I think it was actually around the Girls Inc. partnership where Siobhan was like, hey, like you can't just be like, hey, these 3 people supported me. And then it's like me with my pugs, like really chaotic, you know? And so I started learning about close friends, you know? I learned about close friends because as a business leader, you know, there's a difference between being yourself and running a business. And I want to be myself and I want to run a business. But my close friends can have more of me.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a huge thing we don't talk about, which is like 100% of the world doesn't deserve 100% of you. Choose wisely.
The close friends is where it's at.
Yeah, I've been using it more and more these days.
Yeah.
Okay, your children should have veto power over whether they appear on your platform.
Fuck yes.
The most powerful thing a woman can do online right now is strategically disappear.
I'm going to say fuck no.
Wait, why? Curious.
Strategically disappear. It depends on like who you're talking about. I'm like, I think that if you are a business person and you're a woman, one of your superpowers is your empathy. And people buy products and support and do things because of the people that are behind them. Because in a world with AI and all these, you know, ads, the most powerful technology in the world is human trust. So if business is your MO, then using technology to support your business is part of your bottom line. If you're just rich, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. I talk about this all the time with Siobhan. Love her, my amazing publicist. We call it Anon, which is anonymous. We are going to be Anon. Yes, we are going to do this in 12 years and just live on a farm and make books and do things we love and have podcasts because we want to, not because we need to. And like, I think it's a pretty big privilege to be able to disappear strategically. And sure, I'd love to do it, but you know, I got bills to pay and people to feed.
Larz, thank you so much for being with us, for being so insightful. I think our takeaways here for me is a change of habit, really. And also, I love how open you are about the fact that like it's not a hard like don't use your phone. You're gonna have to use your phone, but there's healthy ways to do it. And especially with AI, I do appreciate your stance that it can be helpful and it can do things that like can help your brain, but used the wrong way, you're moving kind of in reverse. So I was surprised to hear that, but I think used properly, everything has a purpose and it can be okay. Like also don't guilt yourself, because I felt really like, oh my God, I do all of those things. And you're like, but there's a progression forward if you just, the more you know, I think.
Yeah. And I think just building awareness of like what you actually do, because I think we're so on autopilot with technology at this point that we're not actually realizing what we're doing or the impact of it. And I think especially what you said about joy loops, even though, you know, we're kind of like talking more about teens, I feel like we could use more of that as grown-ups, is replacing some of the things that we do online with things in real life that bring us joy. I feel like there's just not enough of that for us, and maybe that's what's contributing to the fact that we're so addicted to this technology, in addition to the fact that they make it addicting. So just going in the real world and reading comic books and going for walks and, you know, using AI, I think in a more productive or in a way to kind of assist you instead of replacing your brain function, I think is something that we've talked about a lot. But like in the context of screens especially, it makes a lot more sense. And I hope if you are addicted to your phone, don't feel ashamed, because clearly we all have this issue. But just even that little awareness of what you're
Yeah.
doing, I think can shift your perspective and your habits. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Guys, this was so amazing.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Broadlines.
A production of the Female Quotient, filmed in Los Angeles.
If you liked this episode, and I know you did, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
If you have a question, maybe a work question, or you have an idea for an episode,
DM us at Female Quotient or leave a comment to get the conversation started.
hit that follow button while you're there.
See you next week.